This might be quite long, especially with the backstory, but just to sum it up and get you interested, I did some bodyguard work for one of the biggest crime families in my country, one of the real elites. I won't say where I am from, just in case. I used to be a boxer and would compete in a lot of amateur fights where I lived. I was desperate to try and make it professionally, but it wasn't the meteoric rise I was hoping for, so I had to do other stuff to keep myself afloat. So, I got a job at a private security firm in my home city. I expected it to be a really standard job, just being a bouncer on the door of nightclubs and bars and such, stuff like that. And I mean, for the most part, it was usually. There is always a big need for that kind of stuff. It wouldn't always be that kind of gig though. Every so often, we would get a job that was just strange and not the usual thing. I've been hired to protect places of worship, like churches and stuff, due to threats being given and intimidation from unsavory types. I've even had to guard a place for kindergarten because of someone who clearly had mental problems trying to threaten kids and threatening to show up and kill all of them. My most memorable job is the one that I want to tell you about today. It is the event that caused me to quit and try to live a quieter life with a job that has less stress. It is also an event that caused rampant gang warfare in my city in the months following, and it was not a pretty sight. So, I was asked to provide security for a funeral in my city. Not just any funeral though. It was a funeral for one of the biggest crime families in the city. For reference, this was back in the 90s, and they were absolutely notorious, and were not people you would ever try and fuck with if you wanted to live. They were well known for their brutality, and they had done some sadistic shit. I was only 23 years old at the time, so hearing about this freaked me out. At first, I was just told it was a funeral, but something about the way he said it made me uneasy. I wouldn't usually, but I could not help but ask for more details, and he reluctantly told me. If you were alive back then in my city, and I said their name, you would shit your pants. But of course, I was told that the pay would be fat, and that was all I needed to know. Yes, I know, I'm a dumbass. So, that weekend, one of the high-ranking members was being put in the ground. I can't recall how he died, but I know it was not peaceful. This guy had a big reputation as a crazy fucker, so a lot of security was gonna be needed. He was considered the wild card of the family. I think the security was more for keeping the family in check than anything else. A long history of alcoholism and violence at a place like that. Recipe for disaster. We were told we would not be needed directly at the church service, and only at the family home. Definitely a little bit strange, but of course they would not be drinking at church, so I imagine that is why. We pulled up probably around midday or so to a mansion that was bigger than anything I had ever seen before. There was a maid that showed us around before the family returned from the service. As soon as they arrived back, we had to prepare for something serious, although we did not really know it yet. About half an hour or so after we pulled up, the first black SUV pulled up to the gates. The family started to pour in, just tons and tons of people. The suits and shit that they were wearing cost more than I would ever make in my entire life. The mood was insanely intense to begin with, as you would expect. For the first few hours, the job was just like any other, except that the family were all insistent on trying to ply me with drinks, and I had to refuse them all, obviously. By the early afternoon, after some heavy grieving, they decided to grieve in a different way. They decided to party. Just a full-on, high-spirits party. Like, they were giving it everything, no half measures involved. We expected some drunken family brawls, but nothing at all. Just drunk people having as good a time as you could when a family member has just passed away. We probably had around 3 hours or so left on the clock, and we thought it would end up being the easiest job we have ever worked. Unfortunately, it did not. The back garden for the home was massive, bigger than I could ever put into words. It had a football pitch on the lawn, and tennis courts, and even a pond. There were 4 other guards surrounding the house, and then 2 inside, and we kept switching between ourselves to give ourselves a proper break. I was positioned at the front at this time, and I was speaking to a fellow guard about security measures and finishing up. Out of nowhere, we suddenly hear someone around the back talking over his radio. Apparently, someone had started beating on the backyard fence very loudly. We sprinted around the back to see what the commotion was and to help our guy out. The second we rounded the corner, we saw a man dressed in all black and wearing a face covering start smashing his way through the backyard fence using a fucking sledgehammer. He was mid-swing when we saw him, and the second he let fly and there was an opening, about a dozen people wearing the same getup as him started flooding in. They were carrying weapons of all kinds. Bats, clubs, knives, hammers, you name it, and they had it. We were not well armed enough for this. We were not allowed to carry any firearms or anything like that, so we were well and truly fucked at this moment. We had to act quickly and focused on getting everyone inside and to safety. Started trying to secure the back doors and shit. Unfortunately, one of the doors was made out of glass and was a sliding door, so it took only a second for it to be shattered and for the masked men to break through. The family, though, I had never seen anything like it. They knew someone had broken in looking for a fight, but they did not realize immediately that they were armed, so what followed was the biggest bloodbath I had ever seen. The most horrible sight that I was powerless to stop. Even after realizing that they had weapons, the family didn't really care. The problem was that they were all blind drunk. I watched as some of the male family members would try to throw a punch or two, but their reactions were too slow. They would miss and wouldn't be able to throw up their guard in time, and would be met with a club or a bat to the face, and that was all that was needed to knock them out clean. Then they would swarm whoever fell to the ground and beat them bloody and senseless. A lot of the family were hauled up in one of the bedrooms at the top of the stairs, and we were attempting to guard it. The attackers were starting to make their move up the stairs, and we knew we were fucked. The sight in front of us was terrifying. People on the floor all kinds of fucked up, having no idea if they were dead or just brain damage from the weapons. We had a lifeline, and I thank God every single day for the blessing that saved us. While the family did not want any kind of weapons at the party or funeral out of respect, they had planned for this event. In the main bedroom upstairs, they had a stockpile of weapons. You think they'd bring out a couple of handguns or rifles or whatever and just shoot the fuckers, right? Not these crazy fuckers for some reason. Some of the family members started coming downstairs with shit like spears and short swords, the kind I had never seen in person before in my life. One of them had a fucking broadsword. The attackers started to hesitate, and everything just became kind of a blur in that moment. 1 second, I am watching the attackers advancing, and the family members going to meet them, and the next, I am watching a short spear being driven straight into one of their eyes. Somehow it wasn't fatal, but the scream of pain that I heard that day forever haunts my brain. We had to be the most useless security team in the world at that point. Half of us on the floor, beaten and half dead, and the other half of us stood there, gripping these unconventional weapons with no inkling as to what to do with them. The one guy runs away screaming for his life, but the rest of us are caught in this kind of standoff until things start flying down the stairs onto the heads of the attackers. The family members who were holed up at the top of the stairs, mostly the older women and the children, had started throwing whatever they could find. Ashtrays, stiletto heels, even glass shards from what looked like a broken mirror. It was just a rain of shit. Everyone is screaming, and one of the attackers gets hit with a glass ashtray, and he just goes limp. Collapses immediately to the floor and starts shaking and twitching, and then just goes still. That is what saved us in the end, the fear and the panic that we caused them. They had better weapons than us. They knew how to use them. And after all of the people they fucked up, we were outnumbered, if you don't count the people upstairs. The two that we managed to injure, I think, just made them panic and forget how to fight. If not for this, I think we all would have ended up dead. They just cut and run, screaming all the while. The home was a wreck of blood and glass and dust. On their way out, the attackers took more swings at the people already on the ground, and we started to chase them harder when we saw that. I guess that was their last big fuck you. The people on the floor, it was a horrible sight. Broken limbs, broken ribs. One guy had lost every single tooth that was in his mouth. I saw him open it up, and it was just a black void broken up by red, with more blood smeared all over his lips, looking like jam. I don't think anyone died, luckily, but if they did, I was not ever told. I guess that was the type of shit they would keep secret, and they certainly would not be hiring us for any future funerals. This one guy, his fingers were literally hanging off of his hands in places, and you could see the exposed bone. Another guy had his eye popped out completely out of his socket, and his skull was severely fractured. The EMTs arrived pretty quickly, and we helped them carry people outside. Once people became conscious, it was just a mountain of screams. It was horrible to hear. They had to be sedated or pumped full of painkillers just to get them to stop. The police response, as you would expect, was massive. These people, a part of this family, were career criminals and have been involved in criminal activities their whole life. I don't know the specifics of how they operate or how they avoid police detection or arrest, but let's just say they both hate each other. These people would rather die than talk to the cops. This time they made an exception. They had no trouble spilling every single last detail of this gang attack. I suppose the mix of them being drunk, the vulnerability of the occasion, and the disrespect that they felt must have made them so mad that they were willing to snitch to the cops. I imagine they also wanted to use the cops to do their dirty work. The men had been masked, but if the police ended up finding out who they were attached to, then they could use that for revenge. The attackers did turn out to be a rival criminal gang that they had a lot of history with. Why did they attack? Simply because they could, because they knew it was their best ever opportunity. One of our guards had to get about 30 stitches to get his head and face put back together properly. He never returned to work after that, understandably. The two guys the family injured, they tried to hide, tried to treat themselves at home and hope it would just get better. The guy who got hit by the glass ashtray, they dragged off with them, but eventually it got worse for both of them. The eye wound started to fester and the pain became unbearable. The other guy had some kind of brain damage and it kept getting worse and he kept having seizures. They showed up at the hospital begging for help and eventually were arrested after treatment as they could not explain the injuries and it was way too easy to piece together. The guy with brain damage went down for the crimes. He was too fucked up in the head to follow what his lawyer told him, and he accidentally kept tripping up and spilling details that eventually got him sentenced. Guy with the fucked up eye took the fall with him. He could not help but incriminate him too. Not even the end of the story. 6 months after all this happened, tons of rival members started just showing up dead. It was chaos. I never did that kind of security work again. I decided it was not the life for me. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Be me. It is the early 90s in upstate New York. We're having a family cookout. All the cousins, aunts and uncles. It's a massive gathering. It's summertime, so it's super nice outside. The weather is really nice. In the early evening, I happen to notice what looks like a homeless bum walking at a leisurely pace out of the woods behind the house and towards the party. I tell my mom. She looks at the man and immediately calls for my dad. My dad takes one look at the dude and immediately says, "Jesus Christ, get everybody in the house." I clearly remember everyone running into the house as this man approaches from the woods. Just some dirty bum with a long beard. Looks to be maybe in his 50s, but could be younger. We watch from the porch windows as the bum lifts a picnic table full of food and drinks and flips it with just one hand. I clearly remember my uncle wanting to go out and fuck the dude up. He even went to open the door to go out, but my grandpa stopped him. Dude turns and makes eye contact with me through the window, smiles, eventually stumbles back into the woods the way he had come and disappears. Now, what is so weird about all of this is that my dad was a lieutenant with the city police department. He could have had the whole department down there with just one phone call, but he was terrified. My grandpa was a World War II Marine vet, and my uncle was a professional boxer. These were tough dudes, and they were all afraid of this dirty old bum. Grandpa and uncle have both passed, but I asked my parents about this a couple of years ago, and they both claimed they do not remember it. Bullshit. Some basic info about me. I am an airsoft enthusiast, and me and my friends will have these wars. Really, just weekend-long camping trips where we would appoint a spec ops team of 4 dudes to capture the base of 11 or 12 dudes. Be 19 years old. First time as commander of spec ops. We all have been apart so far for one full 24-hour period. Late in the night, around 1, creeping toward the camp. Come up and raise my weapon as I pass the tents. No one there. The serious fuck? No one has seen them. Suddenly, a mix between a scream of pain and fear rings out from the distance. SEAL team mode activate. Creeping toward the sound. Find friend on the ground, his leg broken in 2 places, and 3 huge cuts on his chest. While looking at his chest, friend points out words carved in the tray. Weird symbols and such, but nothing discernible. Hear the growl again. Look up to see a figure about 50 yards away. Being full of piss, vinegar, and about 6 cans of Monster, I grabbed my friend and carried him. Tactical nope all the way to the car and load him in. Left without the rest of the people, but to be fair, the car was there. We later found out that he had heard sounds off in the woods and snuck off to surprise us, and apparently, he passes out halfway into the forest. When he came to, this thing was hovering over him. Follow-up story. I have played guitar since I was 14 years old and have played gigs regularly since I was 16. Now, at this time in the story, I was about 17 years old, playing in a friend of mine's house party. Dan, the dude who was attacked and had his leg broken and had the cuts on his chest, is my drummer and is mentioned once or twice. Big guitarist in my band. Call ourselves St. Lucifer. Playing to a crowd of about 70 to 80 kids. Wrap up the set at about 12 and start backing up. Equipment is all loaded in Dan's van, so I start to drink. 2 hours go by, and I have been chatting it up with people about our up-and-coming show at a local nightclub. Random girl walks up to me with a drink. Says she loved hearing me play and wanted to ask about guitars. I take the drink cause fuck it, not like I have anything to be afraid of. Follow her out to the patio. She is pretty good looking and good to talk to, so she is a clear winner in my book. Talking turns to making out. I down the last of my drink and get a really bitter taste in my mouth. She pulls me in and whispers, "Do you want to be my slave?" What the fuck? I turn to walk away, but I start to feel like my feet are melting into the floor. I fall and hit the ground. She is standing over me, smiling. Pass out like a bitch. Wake up in a hospital room. Mom is sitting by me. She starts crying, asking why I would take drugs at a party. She says that she is waiting for a toxicology report or some shit like that. My mom yells at me for days, talking about how my father was a drug addict and that is what killed him. It's the same reason I've never touched anything harder than weed or a stone sour in my life. Report comes back, no drugs. Mom recounts how I ended up into the hospital. I was taken into the hospital 3 days prior and pronounced legally dead when I arrived and came back to life after CPR. When I get out, I meet up with Dan. Ask him about that girl who drugged me. He says he never saw me talk to anyone. Apparently, I just stood there talking to myself, drinking vodka. Fucking nope, nope, nope. Never drink at a house party again unless I physically open the beer myself or have my own flask of booze. Now, one thing I can say is that I don't get drunk. All my life, I've had a tolerance to medication and alcohol, so I can normally put away a human amount of alcohol without feeling so much as a tingle. As the years rolled on, I never saw the girl again. I have huge-ass trust issues as a result, and her southern accent still rings in my ears, clear as a bell. Being 19 years old. I am with two friends and in the mood for a scare. Decide to go look for some ghosts at haunted places. Try the local cemetery. Nothing. Go to an old mansion where one friend has been before a lot of times. Says he's seen a lot of shit there. Get to the house and immediately go up to the big glass front door. Friend that has been there a bunch stays by the street to look out for security. Can see right into the building, but it is super dark. Get the feeling of being watched. Can't see anything, so decide to go around to the side of the house. There is another glass door where you can see right into the building. Long hallway with old grandfather clock at the end. Two big rooms on either side, one with a slightly open window. Still feel like being watched. Don't see anything, so go to the other side of the building. Not quite all the way to the side. 3 big windows with no curtains. Remember this. Continue to the side. Nothing but high up windows. Notice one window's curtain looks like someone has pulled them up at the corner and is peeking out. What the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? See another window with curtains that should be straight, but they curve to the side for some reason. No big deal. Go back to the 3 windows. Notice a faint, bluish light. Stare. Friend says, "Hey, Anon, do you see that thing in the corner of the middle window?" What thing? Look. See some sort of dark thing in the corner. Suddenly it starts moving. Hunched over shadowy figure of a man. Walks with a limp toward the window. Weird light in the back also starts to move. Light and figure move separately. Nope, 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 back to the front of the mansion. Forgot to mention that no security people stay in the mansion at night. One security guy comes and visits at night and keys in, and then leaves. Noping out at friend that stayed at the front. Tell him about the old guy. Says he's seen him too in the long hall at the other side of the house. Also tells us to look up at the windows on a tower on the house. 2 curtains have been opened since we got there. We have been legitimately watched the whole time. Nope. Too curious, so one friend and I go back to the side of the house with the 3 windows. No light. Can't see into the rooms anymore. Oh shit. Go farther around to see the other windows. Window with the corner pulled up is still pulled up. Window with curved curtains is now straight. Oh yes. Go back to the 3 windows. Wait for something to happen. About to give up. Then the light starts coming back. Moves from right window to all middle window. Doesn't stay in the back. Source starts coming toward the window. Also, other lights in other 2 windows. All weird and bluish. One in the middle speeds to the window. Get this crazy feeling of discomfort. Just before noping out, see part of source. Not a flashlight or anything like that. It's a ball of light. Kinda misty stuff around it. Middle is super bright and white. Blue aura. Nope out of there. Get in the car and leave. Feel watched and followed for the longest time. A lot of people died in that house. People have seen a lot of different things during the night and the day. Be 15-year-old me at the time. I am now 34 years old at the time of writing this. I was in high school. Mom works there full time. Have to take the bus back home, alone. She stays at work. Take detour to downtown to play in the arcade. Mom does not know at all. She thinks I go straight home every time. Them Marvel vs. Capcom Shinryukens. Do that every day for 2 weeks. Clerk approaches one day. Says he sees me daily there. Asks if I want to work in the arcade. Free arcade. Agree. Fill out the work form. Clerk mentions I need to interview with the owner. Owner expecting me at home. Taxi paid round trip. Take taxi to richest neighborhood in town. Arrive at big ass house. Owner expecting me on the front door. Tried to shake his hand. He refuses. Mentions he just got 1 finger amputated. Shows me the stub. Welcomes me in, and in the first sentence offers me a beer. I decline. What the fuck, dude? I'm underage. Spider sense was dead. No fucking internal alarm went off ever. Naive. He starts telling me the duties and the pay rate. Insists on free arcade credits. Reviews work form. Sees I speak English. Mentions constant trips to Dallas and Houston for new arcades. Dude, new arcades. I get to play before everyone. Dude is a doctor, rich as fuck, asked me to join him in the trophy room. We go to this huge ass room, full with lots of hunting trophies. I recall a zebra, gazelles, 2 lions, 1 African and 1 Asian. Shows me the difference in the main. Table is formed by 4 elephant feet, 1 black panther, shitloads of animals. He tells me stories of almost deadly encounters. I am in awe. Shows me trophies. 33rd best hunter in the world. Mentions beer again. Internal voices telling me he wants to drug you. It screams at me. I suddenly realize, fuck, I am alone here. Nobody knows I'm here. I am in the back room of a big ass house. Fucking mind goes berserk. I expect a door opening and several dudes coming out, closing main door. Ass clenches. Assess my surroundings. Big ass crystal whiskey bottle. Might hit him in the head if he tries anything. Dude is calmed. He is speaking, seated in the couch in front of me. He mentions beer for the 3rd time now. I have to leave this place now. I remember the stub. Finger amputated days before. If he tries something, I am scratching the hell out of that. I mention I have to get going, and the dude insists on me having a beer with him. I have no idea which face I made that caused this to happen, but the dude allowed me to leave right away. Get home. Tell mom the whole story. Duh. Asking her if I can work there. Mom goes beast mode. Yells, swears, screams. How could I have been so stupid? I can't believe what she says. I insist I want to work in the arcade. Things get heated up, and she smacks me in the face. Tells me that one day I will understand. Never go to that arcade ever again. Fast forward 15 years later. Watching the news. Having breakfast with my wife and kids. The body of a known doctor in insert rich hood name was found after 3 days of the killing. They show the house. I get petrified. Suppressed memory finally comes back up. Dude was stabbed to death by 2 young males he got into his home. They were working there in the arcade and went for a meal. Dude tried to drug them and they attacked him. My face went. I left the place as easily as I got in. My face went. My mom was right. A bit too salty for these tales, but I have had a drink or 2. Doing undergraduate field research. Plant surveys in Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge. Southern Nevada near the CA border. Nevada Proving Grounds / Area 52, connected to Death Valley. After a long sunny day, we were drinking in a sand dune. To the hills to our north, we see a campfire. It is perched at the top of the hill, but really, really bright, like unnaturally so. Seems strangely spherical / controlled. That is the best way that I can describe it. It moves straight left, seemingly apart from the hill. Then to the right, and then it moves up. Then it moves around the top of the hill for a few seconds in total, and then it's just gone. I work in AG now, but that shit still makes me think. It may be unrelated, but I got way too into drinking right after that trip. Does anybody else have any creepy stories from Asia? I have one that I'll share with you now. I was working overseas as a photographer. It was probably around 8 years ago or so now. I was working in a shitty bar in the eastern part of Asia. It's currently midnight, so it is time to have a drink with my Filipino friend. I spend hours just chit-chatting with the locals. Suddenly, this one dude enters the bar. Half of the skin on his face is ripped off. There is blood gushing out slowly from his mouth. He goes up to the bartender. This dude points his finger to the woods outside the bar, and then he just fainted. Just hit the ground, just like that. Everyone gets upset at this time. No one dares to sit near the window. The bartender takes out an improvised pistol, a machete, and a flashlight. His daughter and his wife go up to the cellar. The bartender closes the front door and window and tells every single person in the place to leave through the side door at once. After we left and touched the mainland, I asked my friend what the fuck happened. He did not talk much. He told me to keep walking normally till we reached his apartment. He never told me what was happening that night, even to this day. Creepy shit always happening in Asia, in my opinion. They are much worse than Western creepy things. Well, what did he tell you happened then? Still no explanation until now. Last time I met him was in Malaysia, in December of 2012. I have had no contact from him since then.